Hello guys, today we have an amazing dish to cook, the mushroom risotto. But we aren't going to use any mushrooms, we'll have some of the finest and most sought after fungi, truffles, morels, and chanterelles. So it will be a very interesting video with lots of techniques and tips. Let's dive in. First of all, we'll cut the mushroom starting with the morels. Morels is the generalized name for this type of mushroom with a long body, cone-shaped head with holes in it. The best one you can get is Morchella esculenta, and the one I have here in the video is actually a false morel named Verpa bohemica. Now in all honesty, I did not know that when I bought them at my local market, and probably many of us would have been fooled. But to turn this around, the way to identify them is either by cutting them open and seeing how the cap is attached to the body, or by looking at the holes in the cap. The false one has a brainy looking cap while the real one has holes all over. Okay, enough science. We will chop around 100 grams of the morels finely, keeping 6 or 8 for plating later. We will do the same thing with the chanterelles, mincing them up and keeping a few good looking ones for plating. Mine were frozen, so they still had a lot of water in them. My advice is to try to dry them as much as possible with some paper towels so the cooking goes faster and much smoother. Now we'll finally chop some parsley as garnish for the final plating and as a flavor booster. In my opinion, parsley is perfect for risotto because it cuts down on the creaminess of the dish, making it easier to eat. The onions, I suggest you cut a bit smaller than I did here if you want them to not be so noticeable in the end product, but personally I really like the texture and the taste when I eat it, so that's why I cut them a bit bigger. Try to keep them the same size throughout to make it consistent. We shouldn't skimp on the parmesan because this is what creates a really smooth sauce in the end and a crazy creaminess. I recommend using a microplane if you have one because it's one of the best graters on the market that can be used on almost everything you need, and it's also very cheap at around 15 euros and will last you a good few years. Next here we have the very sought after truffle. This one is very small, I know, but I would say it's pretty average for a truffle and enough to flavor the dish. Speaking of quantities, the only limit here is your own wallet because the more truffles equals better taste, but it also depends on how powerful and fresh the truffle is. I think it was around 5 to 4 grams here, and in the end it was enough. We are again going to use the microplane to grate the truffle finely, being careful not to waste anything. Enough prepping, let's get cooking. In a non-stick pan we will heat up a little bit of olive oil and saute the mushrooms until cooked and caramelized. You should cook them on very high heat so they get crispy fast so they don't turn soggy. We can also add a bit of salt, but not too much since we will season the dish at the end too. Now starting with the risotto, in a pan we will heat up some olive oil and a bit of butter and melt the butter. Next we will sweat the onions until they turn translucent. Be careful not to burn them because we don't want any color here. After that we will add the rice and toast it a bit until it gets hot but not burnt. Then we will add the wine and mix for around 2 to 3 minutes until all the alcohol is vaporized. Now we can start adding the stock while cooking on medium heat and keeping to stir. We need to stir constantly to not let the risotto burn and keep adding stock when it gets dry. After 6 minutes of stirring, we will add the grated truffle and mix well. Almost at the end, we can also add the sauteed mushrooms. You'll know that it's done when the rice is cooked but still has a small crunch and sticks a bit to your teeth when chewing. Now at the end, we should also add the parmesan. I added it a bit earlier, but it's not good to do that because it can split and ruin the dish. Now for a simple plating, we'll get a black plate, put the risotto in the middle, add some microgreens and some of the whole mushrooms which I sauteed. Next week I will show you how to debone an entire chicken, so don't forget to subscribe and like to not miss anything. Until next time, keep spreading those kitchen smiles and happy cooking.